So I start with Pope Francis. And even if we know that we cannot always guarantee healing or a cure, we can and must always care for the living, without ourselves shortening their life, but also without futilely resisting their death. This approach is reflected in palliative care, which is proving most important in our culture, as it opposes what makes death most terrifying and unwelcome, pain and loneliness. So I think that a first message is to understand palliative care as in a broad sense. So a good care to the patient. So from the disease, for the sick person, from the disease to the sick person, to the person, and take care of all symptoms and all needs, physical, emotional, and spiritual needs, as early as possible when we have a serious illness. So start as soon as possible to offer this palliative care together with other treatment, that sometimes we call aggressive treatment, but we offer this complete, we call also holistic, global approach to the patient. Not to focus only on the part of the body or control also the disease, but to help care the patient, the person with the disease. And of course, we try to guarantee this palliative care from the beginning of a serious illness and also at the end of life, when the disease became at the last stage and we needed to increase palliative care to offer more support, to offer good quality of dying, and to help the person, the patient, and the family to enter in this stage and to help at the end of life. So sometimes it's not so easy to define the border between aggressive treatment, because we needed to guarantee chemotherapy or all other treatment that are useful in that moment, but slowly, when the disease is progressing and we are in the direction of the end of life, the patient becomes terminal ill patient, to offer more and more palliative care, because it is the good care for the patient in that moment. Of course, I mentioned death and dying. That is a very important, difficult question that has always challenged human beings. What is death? And our perception and identity that we are mortal, finite creatures. And try to enter in this philosophical and religious question of our identity. But now we have a new phenomenon that is a long process of dying. Its meaning and the time issue, a challenge for medicine and society as a whole. It is very positive to have a very active medicine. We can control a lot of disease. But on the other side, there is the risk that the process of dying is longer and longer. And it is more difficult to understand and to manage that long time of dying. Until 50 years ago, in many cases, the process of dying was very short because there were no drugs, no technology, and so, for a serious illness, the process of dying was short. Now the process of dying with chronic disease, degenerative disease, and so, and with the good results of medicine, it becomes more long. And so we needed to understand which kind of care for this long process. And we have some characteristics of the process of dying in today's environment. A strong medicalization of dying. So the process is more under the control of medicine. And the medical criteria are the more important. And we are losing the more existential experience of approaching the death. The privatization of death and loneliness of the dying is more a private process, and the community is not so involved. And in many cases, we have more solitude inside the family or with the caregivers and with the patient. Fear of any form of pain and analgesic trend. So we have the fear that all kind, and we try small, very small suffering is immediately something to cancel. And with the idea that it's better also to cancel the person when there is this kind of suffering. And claim to control our own death. There is the idea that I am the master, I am the Lord of my life, and so also I am the master and Lord of my death. I decide when, where to die. And that is a big trend and problem. Or I can accept my nature of a mortal creature and accept also that I'm dying. So we have an alternative strategies in the management of the terminal stage, a terminal phase. A strategy of denial and control strategy to protect at all costs the terminal ill patient by the awareness of death. To control death, trying to prolong life at any cost. That is the risk of aggressive medical treatment, we call also therapeutic obstinacy, with a disguised, a covered time of dying. There is no a time of dying, not a time of preparation, but we cover with the same aggressive treatment, and the patient died in 2-3 days, but it was not really a common path together to go in that direction. On the other side, to fight and control death by attempting to hasten death in the name of man's dominion over his or her own destiny. The trend to euthanasia. So if I have to die, why to wait for the death? I can decide to die now. And so I cancel the time of dying. Why to wait 3 months, 5 months for this process when I can decide to die now? And I ask they kill me because there is no meaning to wait for. And also in the society, there is the idea that it is a loss of time, that we translate is a loss of money. Because we know the result. It is the death. And so why we spend money, we spend resources, we spend to guarantee this time of dying when we can resolve the problem in a short time? I think that it is really a big challenge of our society. And we can recognize that it is important to offer the people a good time of living and a good time of dying. And also the time of dying is a time of your high human condition, and the time and the money that we spend for this time of dying is the price of our humanity, and maintain our humanity. We are able to help the people to live and also to die in a human way, not only following the criteria or of economical or financial or practical things that why we have to take care of the dying person. That is the price of our civilization and of our humanity about that. For this reason, there is also another strategy that is the accompanying strategy. To recognize the limitation of the human condition. We are not immortal in this world, and also the limitation of medicine itself. Medicine is powerful, but it is not able to stop our mortal condition. To shift the therapeutic effort from curing, treatment, aggressive treatment, to caring, with more attention to the treatment of the symptoms and to relieve pain. To stand next to the patient, offering psychological and spiritual support. Not to be alone when you are leaving this world. There are people with you. There are people around you. There are people that can help you at the end of your life, because it's experience also for us, for the community, that you are leaving your this world. It is interesting how we could manage the beginning of life and the end of life. There are people when you are starting your life and it is happy, and they say welcome when you were born, and there are people that say goodbye when you are leaving, because you are important also for us, and you are a member of our family and our society. That is a big challenge, how we can organize with the healthcare professionals, with the volunteers, with the communities, with the churches, how we can organize this palliative care, this hospice care, this support and accompanying strategy for the people. And now we have a big challenge with many elderly people, because we need to understand that the problem is not only the cancer, that was the beginning of palliative care and hospice care, but now we have a chronic disease, we have heart failure, we have Parkinson's disease, we have long process that they ask a good accompaniment, a good palliative care. So that I think that is the most important value and ethical responsibility, to believe in palliative care, to have a good information about palliative care, is not reducing the treatment, is not to accelerate the death, but is to offer a good care for a human dying of everybody at any stage of his or her life. So that is the first, our ethical responsibility, to understand, to know, and of course to practice good palliative care. There are also other ethical issues that we need to clarify, but I'll present in a short way, and we can discuss at the end. The therapeutic obstinacy, the problem of euthanasia, accompanying in the concrete way for a good death and a good dying, and living will advance directive. Do you know what is a therapeutic obstinacy? I think it's important to know, because so we can prevent or avoid a lot of misunderstandings. Because we have the duty to cure ourselves and also the other, but we have also the responsibility to accept our limits and conditions, and to avoid a treatment that is not more useful and to have no benefit for the patient. Because the last and the very important goal is the beneficence, the benefit for the patient, and to guarantee a good quality of life and dying. That is a document of the congregation in the Vatican. Is the terminal stage. In the terminal stage, the dignity of the person is elucidated in his right to die with as much serenity as possible, and with the human and Christian dignity that is owed to him. So respect the dignity of the person, and respect also the dignity of his or her process of dying. When the treatment is not giving a benefit, but creating more distress, more suffering, more burdensome issues, and so there is no real benefit for the patient, especially when we enter in the last stage of his or her life. And our goal is to guarantee the respect of dignity, the dignity of dying, and a good care. Very briefly, why there is a trend, especially in our society, in favor of this therapeutic obstinacy. There is a technical approach from the doctors, strictly following protocols. I have to apply the protocol. I'm not so interested in the patient, but I'm interested to control the parameters, the blood pressure, and so and so and so. A partial approach, focusing on a limited goal, losing sight the unity of the person and thus of his or her overall best. I take care of the liver, I concentrate on the liver, but I have to take care of the person, not only the benefit for the liver, or the lung, or the kidney. Fear of euthanasia, failing to adequately distinguish between procuring, causing death, killing, and accepting allow it to come, let to die. Is different to kill or let to die. Of course, sometimes the border is delicate. And for this reason, we need a dialogue, we need training, we need education, we need ethicists that can help to be clear, transparent, and sure about that. The pressure of a defensive medicine. So we are aware and the risk of a legal consequence of some decision. Family members' needs, with their difficult to accept the death of a loved one, the possible feelings of guilt, the tension between fighting and surrendering. I have to stress to have a good treatment and to go on with treatment, but on the side to accept that that is the end of life. A religious misconception, even from the Catholic perspective, on life, death, role and responsibilities of patients and health professional. There are misunderstandings that we need to clarify about that. So I suggest some ethical guidelines, starting from the idea of dignity of the person and the support of palliative care. So the ethical approach should focus on the instance of therapeutic covenant, so that in the doctor-nurse-patient relationship, information, dialogue, and the sharing of therapeutic decisions to be taken become possible. Now, sometimes it's difficult to have the idea of a covenant. It's more the idea of a contract, or doctor-patient relationship is more technical, impersonal, difficult. But only if we cooperate, we can find together what is the good solution for that patient in that situation. This allows to analyze case-by-case treatment decisions, especially in situations of uncertainty, where it is difficult to identify the appropriateness of the treatments, whereby the patient involvement is critical in the assessment and therefore in the decision. So case by case, because the patients are different, and to protect for some standardization, but we have to see for you, in that condition, with that kind of disease, with your family, your wishes, your fears, what is a good palliative care program for you? And so we can respect your dignity and your specific identity. We can say you are unique, and we want to take care for you as unique. I think it's a very important ethical responsibility to go in this direction. So it is not so much a question of judging medical treatment in itself. So blood transfusion, antibiotics, ventilator, surgery is not in se, but to consider it from the global perspective of the patient, so that the basic criteria is that of proportionality of care. This involves the analysis of criteria of objective nature, nature of the means, their cost, consideration of justice in their application, and criteria of a subjective nature, patient psychological status, his existential and spiritual assessment, family relations, and so on. So, objective issues and subjective issues, and we can analyze together how to define good care for you. And in clinical cases which are of particular uncertainty and raise ethical dilemmas, or are characterized by situations of conflict, sometimes there are conflicts, for example, inside the family. So the patient has a kind of wishes, but his wife has another opinion, the children, they have another opinion, so it's not so easy to find a common agreement about that. Or there are uncertainty. We don't know exactly what is the best for this patient. Not only at the medical level, but at the global level, including psychological and spiritual issues. So to have ethics consultation, such as a service of clinical bioethics or healthcare ethics committee, may be helpful both for the professionals and also for the patient and the family. And I conclude this part with a very important document that is a catechism of the Catholic Church. Even from the point of view of the Catholic Church, is not that discontinuing medical procedures that are burdensome, dangerous, extraordinary, or disproportionate to the expected outcome can be legitimate. Here one does not will to cause death. One's inability to impede it is merely accepted. The decision should be made by the patient if he is competent and able, or, if not, by those legally entitled to act for the patient, whose reasonable will and legitimate interest must always be respected. I think it is clear. I know that in the practical level, we have to see case by case how to manage this teaching and in which way we go on with some treatment or we decide to withdraw some treatment because we need to guarantee a good care, a global care for that patient in that moment. So I conclude with this perspective in a more practical way of a good accompaniment of dying person. In which way to offer this good company at the end of life. So recognize and embrace the reality of the human condition. I repeat, we are mortal and finitude creature. But on the other side, we need to respect our human dignity as an intrinsic value. It must be at the heart of any kind of specialized care. So to increase this approach and consider the person as a whole and as a unique human being that must be protagonist of the whole processes and the journey of care. So if the patient is at the center of our approach and we recognize his or her dignity, we also help the patient to remain protagonist of that situation. We can understand that when you are seriously ill, when you are in very suffering condition, it's very difficult to maintain this situation. But a respect of the person is also a respect of the patient in his or her identity, and also to involve the patient in this process of communication and decision. Of course, we, in this perspective of palliative care and this good accompaniment, we have three important issues. A holistic approach, so to have a global approach of the patient, a team approach, so it is possible not to have only a doctor or a single nurse, but we have a team that they work together, doctor, nurse, social worker, pastoral care, dietist, so because to take care of all the needs of patient, and an integrated approach. So they integrate together because the person is only one, and we need to have this integrated approach. So vulnerability is the very essence of human life at its beginning as well as at its end. We have these two extremes, the beginning of life and the end of life. And during these two extremes, probably the most important approach is protection. At the beginning of life, we have not autonomy. And also at the end of life, when we are not so easy to understand, our consciousness is reducing, our cognitive. So in the both cases, we need a good protection and care. Other people take care of us, and they respect us. And so we need also to stress in which way we offer good protection to these patients. Treat the person and the family as one unit of care. They are together, in a good sense and sometimes in a bad sense. But I needed to take into account that normally, not always, the patient is part of a family. And so we need to know the relationship, the conflicts, the resources that are present. Pay attention to the communication process. And to communicate is not only verbal, but also non-verbal communication. There is a lot of communication through my expression, my face. There are a lot of ways to communicate with the patient and the family. And there is a very interesting that there is a communication also when the patient is at the end of life, or for example, there is a dementia, Alzheimer's disease, where it is impossible to talk, or there are some, but it becomes very important, the touch. I communicate with a person by touch. And there is a cold touch and a warm touch. At the beginning of life, when we have a newborn, in the arm of the mother, the baby recognizes the arm of the mother, recognizes the body of the mom. There is a communication that is not verbal, but there is the communication of the contact, of the touch. And with many patients, it is very important to have this kind of communication. And we need to use all sense to communicate, not only the speech, but also hear, smelling, touch, colors, music. There are a lot of languages that we have to use to communicate. And sometimes feelings are very, very important to understand that and I am a patient, I am at the end of my life, but I have the concrete experience that there are people that are carrying me. They are protecting me. They are helping to maintain my dignity as a human being as I am dying. And the time that they spend is very precious and important. It's not a lost or waste time. And reverence and silence in front of the person that is facing of pain and suffering. Try to combine, we can say, this present and respect. Sometimes more intense, the silence, but I am there as a nurse, as a caregiver, as a family, and I avoid solitude and depression. So recognize the need for self-care among the professionals of healthcare. That is becoming more and more important. We need to support the caregivers, and we need to support the team, the doctors, the nurses, the social workers, because it's not easy to spend a lot of time, energies, feelings to accompany the dying person. If we enter in a relationship with an empathic approach, also the healthcare professionals, they need support, emotional, spiritual support, to prevent the burnout that is becoming a problem, because it is not easy, but it is very important. And to maintain a human approach, not to reduce a technical, impersonal approach. Learn the lesson of true solidarity. So, in which way to involve also the society, the community, the criteria of justice, the criteria that we are all connected and we can help each other. Also to guarantee a good palliative care to everybody. Discover and embrace the graciousness and the beauty of the human person. We could combine ethics and aesthetics. So there is our challenge to see in the face, in vis-a-vis with the patient, our deep humanity. And that is beauty, to take care and to sit and to give and to go together in that difficult moment of life.